All right, everybody, welcome to another, as I like to say, the no bullshit podcast for contractors, where we're bringing the real deal. And in today's podcast, I got a whole team with me, an amazing team. I've got a couple of amazing people that have been clients of ours for a while, and we're going to get into their journey and story. I got my right-hand man, Liam, that's on the podcast today. So we're going to be getting into the nuts and bolts of how these guys have scaled their contracting business, basically gone from like we're in the hundreds of thousands, like 800K, not making much profit, chaos, not in control, to now a multi-million-dollar contracting business in just a couple of years. We're going to get into what the journey looked like, how they got there, what's it looking like in the future, and really giving you guys as much as we can, tips and tricks, in the tickle trunk, to make sure that you guys can take some insights and make this happen for your business as well. So welcome, everybody. How are we doing?
Thank you. Great. Good. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. So let's start off with, hey, Liam, why don't you introduce yourself and then introduce the lads?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. My internet's unstable now. There we go. So guys, yeah, well, you know me, Liam. I'm the CEO here at PFC. So I met Pat and I got Liam. I don't know for this call. I'm fake Liam. You're real Liam for this call. 2 years ago. About 2 years ago. Pat and Liam are based out of Ottawa. I'm yourself, Highbridge Construction, and you guys have just been, crazy rocket ship growth. I think it's super cool to kind of stop and analyze that. But two really good guys, obviously partners. With that, obviously comes its own trials and tribulations. So you guys may discuss more of that. But why do you guys introduce yourself?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with myself. I'm Liam Hamilton. Partners with Pat on this. So my background is in real estate. I operated one of the largest teams in the country for almost 10 years. I was averaging about 300 home sales a year, and I realized that I wasn't in the right business to completely leverage myself. So Pat had approached me with a franchise he was looking at maybe acquiring, and then we discussed maybe other options, and here we are today.
Yeah, so my name's Pat Violette. Lee mentioned we're partners. We've been kind of knocking away at it for a few years now, but took it seriously, the past couple of years. My background, studied business and finance, worked for the government for a while, got into project management, and then, as Lee mentioned, came across something where I wanted to, push on with my entrepreneurship side, and Liam and I formed our partnership, and here we are today.
Awesome. I mean, how crazy do you have to be to get out of those jobs where you guys have been having success and getting into contracting? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, for me, it was, I still have people telling me it's crazy what I did, but it's starting to pay its way forward there for Pat and I now, where we've turned a corner, and now it's getting really exciting. We're hoping to, just work on our business and not work in the business anymore. And that was the trouble with real estate, is for me, anyways, personally, is like I was never, able to fully relax. And I'm hoping, we are hoping that with this endeavor that we'll be able to leverage ourselves and make everything run smoothly.
Well, I think one of the big mottos, I mean, you guys all hear it, from this corner, is getting your profits to pay for your freedom, right?
That's right.
Right. And, it's just on that point. People will often say to me as entrepreneurs or contractors, they'll say, yeah, things are pretty exciting, and I call it wearing the mask, where it's in reality, it's fucking hell. And I'm like, when it gets really exciting, and they're like, no, I'm like, when it gets really exciting is when you're making a shitload of profits and you can actually, enjoy, and start to see the light of living the life that you want. That to me is when it gets exciting. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I think, to be honest with you, one of the biggest paradigm shifts that Pat and I had was I guess one of our calls about a year or so ago, when it was talked about, maybe downsizing a little bit to make more profits. And I struggled with that. But what Pat and I ultimately decided to do was just charge more. So our conversion rate went down a little. We were converting at about 20%, and this year we're down to about 15%, but our margins are infinitely higher.
I love
that
it.
was a great lesson from you guys. Yeah.
I love it. So let's get into, before we get into like some of the solutions and things of that nature, let's talk a little bit more about this journey. So if you guys go back, Liam, I'd love you amongst the three is to paint the picture of like what did it look like going back, in time. Like what was that environment like? What did that sound like, to the three of you guys? I mean, Liam, being sort of your, you've got the whole team here at Proper Contractors, but I know, Liam, you were heavily involved on the coaching side. I know Pat and Liam, you guys were involved on, on the business side. So tell us a little bit about what did that look like?
Yeah, I could speak to that a bit more. We started off literally as a handyman company. We started off probably about 6 years ago, subcontracting one-off jobs, hanging pictures, and doing drywall repairs. And then we just kept pushing, slowly grew, and then we got to a point where it made sense that we got coaches involved. We needed someone to kind of lead the way and answer our questions and kind of have an outline of what we wanted to do, and having resources and people that we could speak to that have been in the business, know what it's like to grind and start from the bottom and slowly push your way through. So literally, we only just used to subcontract knick-knack little jobs, and now we find ourselves with more or less 20 to 25 employees at any given time, 30 to 40 jobs on the go, growth. So it's been a hell of a wave.
Yeah, before coaching, we were running a not-for-profit where we had about a staff of 6, and we basically just paid them salaries and made nothing for Pat and I. So.
Actually, I remember a couple of calls where it was less than nothing.
Yeah. If we're being completely honest, for sure.
Hey, man, let's be honest, right? This is the no bullshit podcast, baby.
Right.
You're paying your clients to do the jobs.
What was that, Liam?
You're paying the clients to do the job, right? You're like,
that's right.
Hey, let me pay you to do your job. How's that?
Well, me and Pat treated like an endeavor, right? Like we're trying to best our staff, right? And through that, it was costly, right? We wanted to make sure that our reputation was always intact and that we would fix any issues that we had. And we don't have any original staff from when we first started. So I think that's an indicator of just the trials and tribulations that we had to go through to finally nail down a staff that we're really happy with.
Let's talk a little bit about that. So I think everybody that's listening in on this podcast, and this is a great exit strategy for those that aren't a fit for this podcast. If you're listening in on this podcast and you're like, and again, I'm not trying to be an ass, I'm just being straight up with you. Anybody listening in, your time is very valuable. But if you're listening in thinking that you're going to make it, you're going to get the freedom you want, the profit you want, the control you want, being a one-man show, a two-man show, this is definitely not the right podcast for you. Okay. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I think Liam, I don't know if Liam mentioned it to you, but when you guys were first coming on board, one of the things that we say to, new family members at PFC is, let's just have an understanding that the people that that you have right now are more than likely not going to be the same people that you have when we go through this coaching. So, Liam, did you talk to them at all about that?
Yeah, I think I remember having a talk with Pat about, I won't mention the guy's name, but there's a certain gentleman who's working for you guys. I don't think he works there anymore. And, it was just, there's a lot of like consistent things that we find with like non-A players, right? Just like, making excuses, going over budget, all this kind of stuff. And it was just like, okay, so, is this charity like you're employing this guy for, or are you trying to be a business owner? Because you're being a business owner, right? You got to be ruthless, unfortunately. And if someone's not performing, they have to go, and just having those hard conversations, right? But that's, you guys are in business to make a profit. You're not in business to employ people,
Absolutely. That's right.
So tell us a little bit about this, let's call this your bus you had this bus, you were driving this bus, you had a whole ton of team members, not as many as you do today, but you had a whole bunch of people on the bus. Tell us a bit about the journey of, think about, you got, thousands of people listening in on this conversation, guys, right? They're where you're at right now. Okay. Or maybe worse. And they might be like, oh, there's no good people out there, or fuck Andrew, Liam, you guys don't understand. I can't let this guy go. I can't stop and kick the freaking guy off the bus. Like, that's all we got. Like, tell us a little bit about the mindset you had and the evolution really of that mindset and some of the actions that you took to now be at a place where, going back in the beginning, of making that statement, you're not going to have the same team. Now you have a completely different team. Tell us about that.
I think, well, how we got there, I think, from a mindset standpoint, was in large part because, as soon as Pat and I fully invested in the company and didn't have our other sources of income, obviously, I won't say we lost our heart a little bit, but we started thinking about ourselves a little bit more and looking at our business more critically and making good, sound business decisions. So that's how it started. Since then we've transitioned through everyone that was there before, and now, we have a great team. So that was the motivator for us. But that being said, over the last 2 years, there were still a couple of people we hung on to a little longer than we should have, but yeah, we're failing forward, right? So,
and I think the big one is good old fashioned perseverance, right? Even in the beginning, we thought, you try to send out advertisements, reach around, see if you can find guys that are good. And it took us a long time to get to where we are to now we have guys who are very important to our company. And it wasn't easy. It was that perseverance of we're going to find someone. And we've made some incredible hires in the past 6 months that at some point I thought we would, it would be extremely difficult, or it would take years, or we might even never find it. But it was just one of those things where you persevere, you keep pushing and you keep pushing and you keep pushing. And it ends up coming. It really does. I thought, we might have been shut up a few times, but we were able to get rid of very, very important people that were, very, very important to our company. However, they just didn't fit the mold. They weren't going to be with us for the long term. So we had to make difficult decisions, and, they left at the right time where we got rid of them. And then we made some really good hires, but it's once again, that perseverance, that push to know that it's eventually going to come. You just got to keep working for it and trying.
Actually, and a big thank you for referring Naji to us, the architectural engineer. So he's an invaluable team member right now for us, and we're off to a good start.
Right. Hey, boys, can you just tilt your camera a bit? I want to see your ugly mugs a little bit more.
There we go.
Oh, God. Hey, didn't break the camera. We're good. Okay, so...
And I think one thing important to note is for everybody listening is that you guys have a different path in that you're not like me and Andrew, where you guys went through the apprenticeship and you did those years on the tools. You guys kind of don't really have a ton of the on-site doing it experience, right? That's not really your background as technician per se.
This is so bullshit. So there's very little to no experience. In my case, I probably have never been seen with a hammer in my hand. Pat, maybe a few times.
Yeah, which I think is actually an advantage you guys had in many ways, is you didn't have the technician's mindset of I got to do everything, I got to wear all the hats. And again, no BS for all the guys listening who are thinking oh, it's so hard to hire guys, or it's so hard. Well, if you already have the advantage of knowing how to do the work, that's a huge advantage. And these guys have scaled a multi-million-dollar business, and they don't actually have any trades experience. They didn't go through the apprenticeship program me and Andrew went through, right? You guys skipped all that.
Yeah.
That's huge.
I think one of the things that those that are listening in, I want you to understand that when you hang on to somebody, okay, one of the reasons we hang on to people, and I don't know if this is you guys, but I know for myself, when I have my contracting business, regardless of how much experience you have, we as owners naturally have a heart of ownership. That means we feel guilty. If I lay this person off, they're not going to be able to put food on the table. This person's worked here for X period of time. They've put in so many hours, but they're not the right fit. Whatever the reason. Okay. It's one thing somebody steals from you. You're like, get the fuck, dude, you're gone. Okay. It's another thing when you've got, out of all the people that you had, I'm sure there's certain aspects of those people where you were like, yeah, they're trying,
Yeah.
and they're good people and they got families. Well, I'm going to help everybody listening in on this podcast with a little bit of a belief system. We have these limiting beliefs, and they really are limiting. They limit us from not just our potential. And here's my principle. They limit the people that are working for us that are not a fit from their potential. You hanging on to somebody that is not a performer, is not going to follow your systems, is literally setting them up for failure. What would you guys have to, all three is, what would you have to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the most difficult decisions we made were the people that were, doing a good job, trying extremely hard. And we actually put people in the poor positions. It was our choices. There was times where we were overpaying people and putting them in positions where they couldn't handle it. They just weren't the right fit. So we're going to fire them tomorrow. We just couldn't do it. They just had too much leverage in our business. But eventually we put together a strategy where we found the right people and we made, arrangements to offer them something that made more sense to them. But it's true. We've been there a couple times where extremely important people that were put in positions that were even more important than how big they were for our company. And they just didn't fit. They were 60% good or 65. But for us with growth in our company, we have to find the right people who can bring us to the next level,
I think we struggled more because Pat and I weren't in a position to sit there and just put grab a hammer and go out and do the work when we let someone go. We were really handcuffed.
Right.
We relied heavily on these people to help grow our business. And like Pat said, it was difficult for us. We had a really tough time. And I think the main player that we ended up letting go of a year and a bit ago, that was extremely difficult because we've grown to have a personal relationship and we really liked him and he was a good guy. But, at the end of the day, that was a factor that held us back, along with the fact that Pat and I could just jump on the tools and make things happen, right?
Yeah, that definitely amplifies the challenge you have because you've committed to doing work for clients, right?
Yeah.
And yet you've got to let somebody go. And anybody that's got a company, the smaller the company, in all reality, everybody, in essence, especially in the trades, when it comes to the field, I'd have to say it's sort of the opposite in the office, but in the field, it amplifies it. In other words, if you've only got 4 guys and you let go of 1 guy, that's 25% of your capacity that you've got to fill, right? You got 10 guys, you let go of a guy, it's 10% of capacity. I mean, there's a little bit more leeway, right? So I think that's part of the reason it's so difficult to grow a contracting business because especially in the trades, no matter whether you quote jobs or it's contract, it really at the end of the day is time and material. It's somebody physically, it's a full contact sport, right? You go out and you got to be in contact with whatever it is that you're trying to build or make, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Liam, when you were talking when we were walking these guys through some of these steps, what did you see as some of the, areas that cause them to not make, maybe faster decisions in letting people go?
I don't know if pin it down to one thing. I think just in talking with Pat a lot, I think Pat, really, I think you just doubted yourself, right? Like to be honest, right? There's a lot of self-doubt. You're like, can I really do this? Can I, will people follow me? Will they respect me because I don't know how to do the work? I've never done this before. And like doubt's it's a killer. It's like it kills tons of entrepreneurs, right? Like Liam, how many real estate agents did you coach that they doubt themselves, right? And that's like one of their hugest barriers to their success, right?
Yeah.
It's mindset, really. I know it sounds corny, but I say it all the time, but like it's mindset. Like Pat said, if you're not willing to grind and persevere and shred through the shit, like forget about it. And unfortunately, today's culture of like instant gratification culture and Instagram and Facebook, everyone just sees the end result. No one sees the iceberg underneath of the minefield you went through. And the fact that you guys are open about that, like that's what a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of contractors need to hear. It's like this, it gets harder before it gets easier.
Yeah, it's a lot harder, absolutely.
So, when we look at, and I love what you guys are, I love, if we were to look at culture, perseverance, right? Determination, resiliency, that like that is just part of our DNA. Like we wake up in the morning and go, okay, world, kick the shit out of me as much as you can. Like bring it, and I will come off the ropes. I might be bleeding, but I'm going to come off the ropes. Now, with that being said, I got to dial this in. That is a given. So if you're not willing to do those things, even those 3 attributes I mentioned, to become a champion CEO of your business, honestly, go work for somebody. Because as tradespeople, especially as an owner of a trades company, I fucking guarantee you can get paid really good, really well working for somebody else, because you've got a skill set that allows you to be able to, perform at a very high level. If you're an owner of a contracting company, I would say most owners of contracting companies are like the Gretzky. Now, in your guys' case, that wasn't the case, right? So even more, right, in more so, even perseverance and determination. So, but let's put that to the side. Okay, that's the mindset that you guys had, and that we believe in. Let's talk about process. Let's talk about, procedures. I remember having a call with you guys. I don't know if Liam was on it or exactly who, but I believe, Pat, you were on it. And no offense, but there was no process, right? There was really no process for almost anything. True?
Yeah. For a
So
while,
let's talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, for a while it was kind of, grow, bring business in, and then there was no true black and white process at the beginning. And I mean, there was no true map for it in the same breath, right? It was kind of, flying by the seat of our pants within reason. I mean, we'd always make our clients happy. We'd always get jobs done, but it was more or less, were we making money? Were the communications in place? I mean, it's a forever growing battle, but where we were then versus where we are now, our processes are coming together. We have a complete separate sales process in itself. We have a, production and operations process as well. So yeah, no, where we were and where we are now is completely different for sure.
Love it. So let's wrap up on the the hiring and this new team that you've developed in just a minute, so we can move on to some of these other areas. But what were some of the things that you put into place when you went to find people from your ads? Like, what changed if you look at it? And Liam, what did you remember seeing with these guys throughout this transition of change regarding how they went about finding people, hiring people, indoctrinating people? Like, let's talk a little bit about that, like some tangible tactical things.
Well, I think at its core, what Pat and I finally started doing was structuring things, right? And it probably began with the sales process, which, philosophically, Pat and I agreed on how we wanted things to work. And basically, we just adopted the same model I used in real estate, right? So generate leads, have an inside salesperson, but you had to have a structure. So they had to have software that they could work with, and then we had to detail the process and create some of the automations. Once we started doing that, and it really did begin with the sales process, I would say that the project management process has more out in the field right now, and we will ultimately develop a very seamless project management thing. But I think it starts with providing your staff with structure and clear expectations. And we've done that through leveraging softwares and creating all of these systems for selling, and ultimately we'll do the same for the project management side of things.
I love it. So, Liam, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, no, I think you guys just, whatever we're all guilty of, right? When we start, we're hiring, who we need versus who we want, right? So like you guys are just hiring guys that's like, like Johnny on the spot, right? You just need someone to fill the void to do the work, right? But then it's like, you guys were like, hey, we're going to hire like the future, like the A player we want, or the guy like we're expecting a lot of. So like, I think really you're stretching what you want and what you can do and going after those people and demanding more of them, right? Which is hard when you don't necessarily have it all together. Like you said, you don't have the systems, but having that leap of faith to be like, we're going to get the A players, and then we're going to train them, we're going to build, make them better, I guess. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think by knowing your numbers, which Pat and I are finally getting around to,
yes.
We can set expectations and manage them better. Right. We know how much our estimators are selling in a year right now. Like, for example, in our either estimate to be created or estimate sent out waiting for an answer, we have 320 opportunities. totaling almost $7 million, right? So we know that. We know that Richard is, sold 1.15 million year to date. Knowing that stuff allows us to set clear expectations for our staff, and that's again, that helps create a great environment. People need and like to know where they stand, right? So them knowing that information, knowing what Pat and I expect them to do volume-wise, certainly helps create a better culture. Everyone wants to know what's expected from them, so that's changed for us as well.
Yeah, and I think along the way as well, as Liam mentioned, but we also made some really key hires. Like we made some hires in which, they grew with our company, they understood the culture of our company and how we work, and then they invited other people to come work for us. Like it's normally, it happens pretty often where, we pick up one great project manager and it turns out he worked somewhere else and was a great carpenter. And he's like, hey man, these guys are great. I love the structure, benefits, all this, great culture and whatnot is going on at Highbridge. Come and meet the owners or come and meet, their hiring manager. Next thing you know, we're bringing on great talent because I find we attract people that are, similar to us, similar to our culture, and they respect that. So it became a lot easier. We had a really good run where we had one good guy and he knew another good guy, good trades, no good trades, or, similar personality traits. And so we had a great run in that regard,
And then the systematization of everything has helped tremendously too. For example, like just someone like, that was referred or worked with some other guys that work for us, was just hired the other day. He came in, he's an estimator, and he was telling me about his past work experience, and he was asking, what type of expectations do you have for me from a sales standpoint? I said, well, we expect you to sell between $1.5 and $2 million. And he's like, oh, wow. He goes, you don't think that's a little high? And he had just finished explaining to me that in his previous job, or the job he was leaving, he had to go and find all the business, okay? Where Pat and I are generating 260 leads a month. We have an inside salesperson that's processing all the calls and booking all of the appointments. So now all this guy has to go out and do is sell. So we've leveraged him so that he can go out and do what he likes to do. And once that was explained to him, he was a lot more comfortable with the expectations. I don't have to call, I don't have to set up appointments. No, it's all done here. So that all helps immensely with culture and conversion ultimately as well.
So, if you think about mindset and when it comes to sharing information, I think, I got my own reasons, but I want to hear from your perspective. A lot of times we hold our cards way too tight when it comes to information. I remember one of the podcasts we did with Debbie and Joe, and, this topic of team always comes up, and always in the beginning when people come to Proffer Contractors, it's really difficult, for them to find people. And there's not just, like Liam said, it's not just one thing, I think when we look at this, one of the things that lacks because we have bad people is we end up holding our cards tighter and tighter. But the problem with that, everybody, is that the A players want to be measured. The A players want to know what the scoreboard is. They want to know how much work do we got. If it's an A player salesperson, they want to know, well, how many leads, man? How many looking at me closing? Like, why? Because they want to fucking perform. But yet what we do, the more we hold our cards closer, the more we attract what? D players.
That's it. Yeah.
So,
and to be honest, I'll speak a little bit to the coaching side. I've been involved in coaching programs for the better part of the last 20 years. So in real estate, I was
sorry to hear about that.
Sorry. But what I did, I was coached by people that sold 100 homes, people that sold 50 homes, people that sold 200 homes. I wasn't coached by too many people that sold more homes than me, but I would sit there and I would listen to anyone that was having some level of success. So podcasts like these are great. All you have to do is pick up one little nugget from something that someone's doing, and you're making another, $30,000, $100,000, $1 million, right? These things are invaluable. So I think it's a great point of emphasis here that, sharing, I think you were alluding to earlier, that me and Pat aren't afraid to share, right? And I think if everyone shared, then, we're all going to be better at what we do, and we're all going to make more money, and we're all going to improve our bottom line. So I think these type of podcasts are invaluable for anyone,
I love it, man.
I think
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was saying a good proof of that you guys have like a good proof of the pudding of that is that you guys have someone on your team, Chantel, and she's great. And you've empowered her to now go and use our resources and post in our Facebook group to get those questions. Like she's coaching herself almost now, right? Where she's like, oh, I'll go to the group and ask about co-contractor, ask about, need a hiring form, whatever, right? Because you're like, because you guys are you're being congruent, right, Liam? Like you're practicing it. Your team picks up on it. And you know, the fact that you're getting guys referring guys, like the ultimate form of your company, the ultimate, expression of your company's success is that if your employees are referring other people to work there, like it's the same thing as getting referrals from clients, right, Liam? Like it's kind of the true hallmark that you're doing something correct. Like, you know, it's like if people aren't referring you work and people aren't referring you guys, like you got to take a hard look at why that's not happening. And I remember, I don't know who the lady's name is. I wouldn't mention it, but there was a job you guys did for this woman. I remember, and it was just like the gong show of gong shows, right? She just was super demanding, high end, like nitpicking you guys, right? And it's the same tactic we teach you guys about filtering employees. You learn to filter your clients better. You learn to spot, like with the inside sales process, you have to spot those Class C, Class D clients, right? Because you can't scale a $7 million contracting business on the backs of Class D clients. It's not going to happen.
That's right. Nope, for sure.
You know? Yeah. So
like I said,
you guys are
feeling
yeah, you're being congruent though, right? And your team is picking up on that, you know, like 100%.
You know, I think one of the toughest things as humans, you know, for us to do is to look in the mirror. It's not easy, right? To look in the mirror and realize the reason we've got shitty team members is because of us. Really?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Sure. Well, that's the first thing Pat and I look at is like, what could we have done differently, right?
Exactly.
Ultimately, it's the buck stops here with Pat and I. So what could we have done to ensure that something didn't happen the way that it happened, right? And there's always something that Pat and I could have done to make sure that didn't happen, right? Yes, there's issues maybe with staff, and there's teaching moments, or maybe there's moments where you just decide that's not the right fit, right? But at the end of the day, Pat and I need to question ourselves first and see what we could have done differently to avoid, you know, something from going wrong, right?
Yes, it's awesome. So, you know, if we're looking at different aspects of the business, you know, one of the things you guys mentioned, and I can't let up on this one. And you know, as soon as the words come out of my mouth, you guys are going to be like, "Oh Christ, here we go, Andrew." Knowing your numbers, knowing your financials, reading them, learning how to read them, right, Pat?
Yes.
Yeah. Forecasting cash flow.
That's it.
How important is that?
You know, it's everything, you know, and we're always, you know, being a general contractor, I mean, we're all in the business, but we have projects that can last 6 months, they can last multiple years. So having an idea of how to structure your numbers and how to look at them and having proper representation, you know, because there's a million ways you can look at those numbers, and we're always finding ways to sort of make sense of them and getting support from our accountants or bookkeepers or, you know, our resources. So yeah, knowing your numbers is imperative. You know, you have to have an idea of where you're at and what you're doing, and kind of coming, you know, what's coming up, and, you know, is this profitable or not? Is it worthwhile to do this job? It's, you know, and it moves, it changes all the time. You know, COVID, we had a huge crunch. You know, we slowed right down. We got super slim and trim, which was at that point in time made perfect sense. And now we're back at it, busier than ever. And, you know, our numbers now have grown once again. But it's, as you said, it's knowing those numbers, having an idea of what you're looking at, and kind of being able to read and judge and forecast. It's extremely important, without a doubt.
Love it. So, Liam, working with these guys and you know, having different conversations, what would you say were some of the key metrics or numbers that were being missed, and even on your side, guys, obviously, like, where are things now versus, or where were things then versus where they are now? Tell us a little bit about, like, Liam, what would you say are some of the key metrics for somebody listening in to look at?
I think it's just the standards. I know it was a long process for you to figure it out, Pat. Like, we did a lot of calls on it. Just like break even, right? Like, just what does it cost us to run our business? Like that, right? Like, we want to buy a shop, we want to hire all these people. Like, break even. How much profit are we trying to make? And then I remember, Liam, we had some chats on, like, you know, different marketing channels. What were the conversion rates on those? You know, what were we paying for them? What's the return on the ad spend? But I think really it all comes down to knowing, like, are we actually making money on our jobs, and how much money are we making on those
Bingo.
jobs? Like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think that's number one, right? is the work we are doing profitable?
Yeah, exactly. And making sure, like, I guess one of the things that we've improved on dramatically, you know, and prior to the coaching, was making sure that we're allocating, you know, all of the labor hours and all of the materials to the appropriate jobs. Right?
Oh my God.
And back costing, making sure that, you know, we have systems in place that allow us to see clearly whether we're making money or not. We had a project at the end of last year. I think we lost probably about $200,000 in, you know, opportunity, you know, based on the fact, not necessarily specific that amount on the job, but we could have been billing out somewhere else at $85 an hour. Knowing that, that's when, you know, I'd say in the last quarter of last year is when we really, you know, started, you know, focusing in and really understanding. We understood our sales numbers, but our profit numbers was probably the last thing. And it's not, we are by no means done with that. I think it'll be, you know, we'll always be looking to improve and making sure that we're tracking all of the right numbers, but it's definitely gotten better. That job there was a great learning opportunity for us.
Let me put something into perspective. And anybody listening in, you might want to go to the previous podcast, okay, about the effects of decreasing your pricing. And the previous one to that, you know, is increasing your pricing, okay? Now, increasing, you know, when we're talking about increasing your pricing or decreasing your pricing, net, what we're talking about is what are some really, you know, easy ways to increase our margins, right? Because if you increase your pricing, you're increasing your margins, right? Okay. So just put something into perspective. You want to hear all the math behind it, then go listen to the previous one. I'm just going to give the high level view. Picture you got a company, okay, that's doing 30 points on $1 million, right? 30 points on $1 million is what, guys? Grab the calculator. Right? 300,000, right? Everybody good? Right? Beautiful. Yep. Now they go and they decide we're going to decrease our pricing so we can get more work. Oh, the COVID. Oh, shit, right? And you know, listening in, everybody, you're like, I got to keep my guys busy. But you don't realize the sacrificial lamb. And it's a big, big lamb. Okay? So you drop your prices. Now, I'm not even talking about inefficiencies. I'm just talking about dropping your price. You go from 30% to 20%. Here it is. You'd have to do $1.5 million at 20 points to equate to the 1 million at 30 points. That's 50%, $500,000 more worth of work, and you don't make any more money. So when these guys went and increased their pricing, yes, their conversion rate went down. Well, that means their quote to win ratio, how many quotes they quoted, how many jobs they won, went down. You want it to go down. Why? That means you're getting better quality fucking people as clients that are willing to pay you what you're worth. So know your numbers, guys. And anybody listening in, if you want to get some help with this shit, whether it's through us or somebody else, get help, okay? Don't try and be a freaking accountant, a bookkeeper, all this kind of stuff. Would you guys agree? Liam?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pat?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Like how much time, right? Profit is time. True?
Yeah. As you said, I mean, the big one is getting a specialist, having people that specialize in what they do. So like as a bookkeeper, an accountant, you know, you get to a place with, you know, HR or what have you, having people that specialize in those areas of business allows you to focus more on your business. And then you can trust, you know, you're more likely to trust what they're doing because that's what they do every day. They specialize in that kind of work, right? You can meet with them and go over your finances at a high level. But having people that specialize in that, it just takes so much more off the plate. So much more you can do to be making more money.
I love it. And honestly, anybody listening in, don't think you can't learn this shit. If you're a tradesperson, I don't give a shit if you're a roofer, roofing company, electrical, plumbing. I know for a fact that you have the skill set to learn the basics that 99% of, I'll be conservative, 90% of contractors don't even know, i.e. Liam talked about break-even margin, right? Talked about, you know, the effects of increase and decrease. And like, guys, this isn't like integrals and derivatives and fucking all that crap I took in engineering. This is like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, right, boys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So this brings me to another area. Liam, I want you to tee this sucker up. Let's talk about partnerships.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's talk. I'm going to let you run with this one as far as like talking to these guys about, we got these two lads here as partners. Let's talk a little bit about that.
I mean, yeah, I think listen, a lot of our members, obviously, as people know, are, husband, wife teams, family businesses, but a partnership, whether you realize it or not, whether you want it to be true or not, a partnership between two guys, it's still a marriage of sorts, right? Like you guys are still completely, attached in a way, right? Like it is like you're in this, your personal lives are get involved, your emotions, and the advantage of partners though, obviously over like an owner operator is that you have two people who are working on the business. Obviously, Liam, you have a ton of sales experience. That's your background. Pat, the management kind of, finance side, that's your background. You guys each bring these really great skill sets. But I think where a lot of partners, where they get messed up is what you just kind of said with regard to having people who are really good at things, do things for you, or delegating, is that you guys, you're now focusing on what your lane is, right? Like Liam, you're focused on sales, Pat, you're focused on the field. Where a lot of partners, they're both trying to wear those hats and like, but I want to do this sales process, or I'm going to do some quotes, and I'm going to get on site, and it just turns into a shit show. Let's be honest, right? So you guys have been, I guess you guys have had the honest conversations of like, I'm going to focus on this, you're going to focus on that. We're going to hire the people who focus on other stuff we're not good at, and that's fundamentally what's allowed you guys to succeed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were lucky that we both didn't have, the exact same skill set, or we both weren't carpenters. I think then it would have been a lot more complicated, but, whether we consciously, agreed to which lane we're going to travel in, it didn't necessarily happen. We just naturally gravitated to the lanes that we're in. I mean, like you alluded to earlier, for me, sales process, lead generation, that's where I went. Pat's more like operational, like project management. Let's figure out, how to make this run the most efficiently. So it's been more natural, if we're being perfectly honest, like versus, and trust me, like we get into arguments all the time, right? So that's part of being a partnership. Some of them are a little louder than others. We try not to, and then we don't, for the most part, have them in front of staff. I'm the hothead, so that's always pretty calm.
Okay, so guess what? You don't get away that easy. So let's hey, right? No bullshit. So let's talk about how you guys get through those, like any relationship. My grandfather used to he's given me some good advice, and my grandmother and what have you, but I'll never forget my grandfather saying, he says, Andy, he says, a good Irish marriage means that you got to be fighting. If you can't get along without having a bit of fight in there, then it's not real. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? Everybody wants this perfect. Oh, we never argue, right? It's such bullshit. Right. So talk a little bit about how you guys get through those disagreements, about how you overcome some of those obstacles.
Yeah, well, first of all, I guess we don't have the luxury of sex as being an option, right, to make everything go away. So we've a beer sometimes, but I don't know. Both of us have like really thick skin. I don't think I could be as mad as hell at Pat for a sec, for 10 minutes, and the next minute we're having a drink or we're laughing about something else. I think I don't know if there's a trick per se, but it's respecting each other, I suppose, and understanding that, Pat comes at things I'm a lot more aggressive, and I said Pat's kind of my yang, where he's a little more cautious and he wants to focus on some of the things that could happen, and then we just kind of meet in the middle. I think sometimes Pat's argument is more compelling than mine, and I think we're just able to sit back and be objective about things. Even when we get emotional, we pull back and we sit there and we look at the point that the other one's making, and then we come to a consensus. I don't think we've ever been stuck on one argument for longer than a day or a couple hours. I don't even know that a day is. Yeah. But we listen to each other. It's a respect thing.
Yeah, and I think too at an extremely high level, Liam and I, maybe that's our deep down entrepreneurship. But at the end of the day, if irrelevant, if it's every once in a while I can get emotional, but you try to pull away from that being objectional. But at the end of the day, if it's in the best interest of our company and making money, then we do it. Just plain and simple. It's just in the best interest of what you and I want to do, and that's pursue a relatively copious amount of money. Then if it's in the best interest of our company and it's not going to hurt anyone or it's not going to bring us back and it makes sense financially for us, him and I normally come to an agreement 90% of the time. Because at the end of it, you step back and say, okay, does this make sense? Is this going to be lucrative? Is this something we should pursue? And normally we will step back and say, hey, it makes sense. And we normally always come to that agreement that as business people, we're in this to make money. We can normally find our way to that relatively straight path on the same mind frame. So that normally comes through.
So you actually gave a little bit of a trick away and you didn't even know it. So those are the tricks, right? The magic shows are the ones that nobody gets to see the magic. So I just picked up something. Liam, when these guys are talking, how clear are they on what their purpose and focus is?
Yeah, I think that's what ultimately probably allowed you guys to build the current team that you have, right? Because when you have a partnership where the owners aren't getting along and they're fighting and they're not agreeing, and like the team instantly picks up on that, right? Like any kind of negativity, any issues you guys have, that bleeds down to the team. And then they're like, well, if these guys can't get along, like, why do I care? Right. Like, it's just like kids with a marriage, right? Like parents are fighting, the kids are aware of it, right? They pick up on it. It's the exact same thing.
Well, and Liam, what's a consistent outcome that they keep bringing up?
Profit.
Yes. Everybody hear this? Profit. Right? Jason. I'm just joking. That's old school Friday the 13th for some of those. Anyways, no, it's profit. You see, when you have a vision, when you're clear on your purpose of what you're trying to do, profits pay for freedom, right? Not like, hey, like even the beginning, Liam, when you were talking to the guys about, in the beginning about, guys, this isn't like a daycare. This is not a, not for profit. This is like getting clarity. Everybody listening in. Yeah. Decisions are going to be difficult, but they sure as shit become a hell of a lot easier to deal with, especially as partners, when you're focused on the same freaking outcome. True?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just want to make a quick comment too about how, like, when you create structure and expectations, how exciting coming into work can be. The other day I had him, he's in the room, but I feel like it's important to comment on it. But I received an email, with an idea to switch softwares and do all of this. And included in that email, Alec had, this would be the cost savings in the first 3 months. This would be the cost savings over the next 6 months. This is how much time we would save, yada, yada, yada. And the one rule that Pat and I have created when people come to us with ideas is one of these three things has to be happening. And we're seeing our own staff starting to think like that, right? Are we going to save money? Are we going to make money? Or are we going to save time? One of those three has to be included in anything, any idea, anything we look at. And it was really inspiring to see a staff member come in and present something to me and Pat like that. And it makes our decision-making process infinitely easier. It makes us trust that employee more. And then we're able to, leverage them more, empower them more, let them make decisions. So I think, by being clear with your expectations and how you want things to work and look, you can get just makes Pat and I want to work harder, so it's kind of cool.
It's awesome, man. It's awesome, guys. I'm going to move in one last spot and then we'll wrap this baby up in like 5 minutes. Is that cool, everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to say this communication. This might be a little bit of a twister, brain twister. Communication is the response you get. What the hell does that mean? Well, if you don't communicate to your team as far as what their focus should be on, then you're just going to get a bunch of gibberish back. But if you clearly are communicating people's roles, responsibilities, results, what the expectations are, you start building a culture that's purposeful. And so when people are coming to you with ideas or suggestions or dealing with an issue, their mind has the right foundational pieces to get through that and communicate properly versus if you're listening in and it feels like even if you got 3, 4, 50, whatever people working for you, and it feels like if you got 50 people, there's basically like 50 different businesses, everybody's doing everything their own freaking way, then guess what? Look in the mirror, deal with reality, because communication is the response you get. You need to step it up and start properly communicating with your team so that you can get, what you just shared, Liam. True?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, sorry, what were you going to say, Liam?
No, you got to push it through, right? You got to push that communication through. You got to kind of build that culture and, leave it open table. Know that, anybody can approach us with anything, any great idea. We're open to discussions with anyone about anything, right? It's always that sort of, will it make us more money? Will it save us money? Or sort of, create efficiency in the company. So we've always created that culture. Liam and I don't want to micromanage. We don't want to babysit. We just want to make sure that there's money being made at the end of the tunnel and people are happy and they want to come to work and be in a good environment. So we try to keep that, at the top of the list with regards to our culture. So, yeah.
I love it. Anybody, go ahead.
No, you guys have got a performance-driven culture, right? That's what it is. People they're rallied around performance. And again, most partners, they're making all their decisions based off emotion, but you guys are making it based off data and logic and numbers, right? And that removes all the ambiguity, removes all the emotion, because the numbers aren't emotional, right? They don't care if Pat thinks his idea is the best. They don't care, if Liam really thinks this is the best sales strategy. The numbers tell you what's really happening or what could happen, right? And then when your team sees that, they're like, oh, that's why that won't work, because it will lose us money. Okay, cool. Then we won't do that. Versus like, but I really want to. It's like, well, I don't think it'll work. Like thinking and feeling, those aren't friendly to business, unfortunately.
Yeah, logic first, right? And then you can get emotional about celebrating the results you got. How about that, right? So last little piece, guys. Let's just touch on this. Prof for contractors. We talk about, and again, of like beating the dead horse. Profits pay for our freedom. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about on the personal side, like just whatever you want to share. Like maybe one or two things that Pat in the beginning or Liam in the beginning, where this business was really affecting you negatively on the personal front, and how things have changed now. Not to say that everything's perfect, but what are some of those changes from where you were at to where you're at now from a personal standpoint?
Yeah, I guess as you said, there's certainly more freedom, or at least knowing that things are happening in the back end. For me, a big one is, that stress in my mind of constantly thinking of, something going wrong, something going poorly, and where we were to where we are now, having the right people and having structure in place gives you that opportunity to leverage. You can leverage your time, you can leverage what you're doing, you can find more personal time versus, we still work like bastards. We always work. It is what it is. But it's not the same kind of work. Now it's more pleasant. Now we can see numbers coming in. We can see consistent leads. We can see happy clients. We can see a culture around us that is growing in itself, right? There's people that bring great ideas and we're able to build our company with confidence and just that in itself, that peace of mind and even being booked out, we're constantly at a place where, we weren't sure how far booked up we would be or how much business do we have in our forefront. And now we do. Now it's not, we're talking about the winter already, and we run 30 to 40 jobs, and it looks like we'll probably continue at that pace. And if we do less than that, it's only because they're bigger jobs, right? So we weren't there before. There was winters where I'd watch other podcasts of contractors on booked up all winter, and I was like, holy shit, what are we going to do next week? Versus now we're booked up with plenty of work. So it's that mind freedom.
And I think and Pat will agree with this too. I think like with the financials being in a better position than before, where we're not worrying about things, our mental state is infinitely better. I remember days when I come into the office and I was hot. I'm like, who am I going to go at today? Who screwed up today to cause me more stress, right? Whereas now, Pat and I find ourselves walking into the office. We might have four estimators, 3 project managers, and the other staff here, and like we feel inspired, right? We come in, it's just a lot more positive now than it was before. So for me, it was definitely the financial strain or the how come we're not making money. We need to make money. Who's causing us not to make money? And now another paradigm shift. Now we come in. You see everyone working hard, doing a great job, and we're inspired. So mental state's way better.
Amazing. And Maureen, on your side, like what have been some of the changes you've seen watching these guys evolve into champion CEOs?
Yeah, I remember those calls that I had with you. You're like in that remember that house you guys had? You're like in the inside the house you hadn't sold yet, and like the stress was just like palpable. You were just stressed with the max, Pat. But if I've seen you got a more zen approach, just to like, yeah, it was just, I think it was bad. Like you could admit, right? You were just constantly stressed out.
Yeah, well, that's it. And, you know, just being able to get things under control, or at least more under control than they were, and seeing things get done and numbers starting to come in, and being able to read them and understand it. It's just, it's priceless. You know, we're always learning. It's always going to be a learning curve with it. But
it literally is, isn't it? Like, isn't it like priceless? Like, what were the, just give us rough, doesn't have to be exact, but if you can share some form of numbers again, like where were you at sales wise and profits, and where are you at now? Just roughly.
Well, we can go back 3 years ago. So we did about 1.2 million. I think we made no money, or we lost 40,000 or so. We lost 40,000 last year. And like I said, everything is like, we've been able to grow, but it was focusing on numbers. Last year we did about 3.5 million, and we probably lost a couple of hundred, right? And that was in the last quarter of the year. And we you know, were able to pinpoint the 2 jobs. We were able to pinpoint the issues, and you know, with one staff member in particular, everything is resolved, and he's having a banner year, right? So, you know, it was just underpriced. It was a difficult client on both the jobs, to be honest with you. That was the case, and it just spiraled out of control. So again, like you alluded to earlier, we don't do that. We won't do work for those clients anymore, right? We recognize, and we teach our staff, if you think this person's going to be a problem, you either charge them to the teeth, or we don't do the work. Yeah. And then this year, we're on pace to do, looks like about $7 million in business. And year to date, our profit appears like, you know, again, lots of different monies moving around, but it looks to be just over $500,000 in profit.
Man, that's massive. Like, that's massive. I don't know what the number is, but I think something like, I don't know, from minus 200 to plus 500 is like 1,000%. I don't know, 1,000 times more or something. Large. So look, if there's last little things, I'm going to have all three is give, like, just, you know, like if there's a couple of, or even just one little point you want to make to somebody listening in where they're like, they're where you were at, you know, they're struggling, they're stressed out, you know, they're working their ass off. There's no money in the bank, whatever the situation. What would be something that you would share with them? Liam, I'm going to have you go first, and then finish up with the lads.
I mean, yeah, it's I see it every time. And, you know, you just got to, if what you're doing is not working consistently, like you're having year over year, you're not making money, you're having these same issues. It's like, you need to just look in the mirror and go, like, what's the common denominator? Oh, it's me. You know, like what's not changing, what's not improving, right? Like it's probably you're doing the same things, and you gotta ask for help, and you gotta find people who are better at the things than you're at, and have them do it. And again, whether that's getting a coach, or whether that's hiring a great bookkeeper and accountant, or hiring a great office manager, or whatever, like you have to invest time and money into people and training and things that will help you get better, because like you're not going to figure it out on your own. If you do, it's going to take a really, really long time, and it's going to cost you a ton of money.
And your life.
Yeah,
right.
true. That's a very good point.
Right. Okay. Pat, how do you go next? Wrapping this baby up.
Yeah. I mean, in one word, I think perseverance is that magic word. I think that all of us kind of need when things are tough and they're shitty, and they get shittier and shittier, and it keeps piling on. As Liam said, you know, you gotta find resources, find outlets, figure out what's going on, and get support. But you need perseverance. You're going to need to know at the back of your mind that, you know, there's going to be brighter days ahead. You got to just keep pushing. It's going to get better. It will get better, but you have to help yourself. You have to find resources. You have to find what's causing your issues. You got to take a step back in the mirror and be objective, right? But always push through. The whole thing of, I'm never going to find someone good, or, you know, we're never going to, you know, find the right subs, or I don't know, the numbers will never make sense. You know, we've seen it. We've literally seen it with our growth, and the right people of literally constantly advertising and meeting people and having people get referred to us to work for us. I think at the top of that list is that perseverance. Even Liam and I together, it's, hey man, we had a shitty year, we had a shitty job. All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's learn from it. What happened? What went wrong? Boom, don't let it happen again. Let's move on. Don't sit on it. Don't wait on it. Don't, just get on with it. Move on to the next job and persevere, push through.
And you know what? I'm just going to catch something on there. And if you're not learning from it, you got to stop whatever you're doing. If you're not learning from it, then get the help. Okay. Because you just didn't learn from it. So what do you think, doing the same mistake again is going to net? Not learning from it, and it costing you in a lot of different ways. Okay. Liam Hamilton, what do you got?
For me, it's investing the upfront time to create automations and systematize your process.
Mm-hmm.
I hear it from our staff. We tell them, we reiterate the same things. We get different staff say, "Oh, I don't have time to do this." Well, the reason why you don't have time is because you're not willing to invest that hour before, so that no longer becomes a problem for you, right? So you're not creating a process. Hiring, for example, what is your hiring process when you hire an electrician, a carpenter? Document everything so you have a checklist so that you're not forgetting things, you're not getting bogged down. Automate whatever you can, whether it's an email, whether it's a specific task. So I feel like that's the best advice I could give someone is like, don't think you don't have time. Make the time, and then all of a sudden your schedule will open up a lot more when you leverage yourself through technology or through systems or what have you.
I'm going to just say this and then wrap this baby up. And who knows, some of you guys might, and some of you naysayers or whatever, bring it on, might not agree with me. People say, Andrew, there's only 24 hours in the day. And you read this book. There's only 24 hours. We all get we all get 7 days and 24 hours. That's all we all get, right? Bullshit. Mm-hmm. But what? What do you mean bullshit, Andrew? It's 7 days, 24 hours each. Yeah, nobody said you couldn't make more out of the time if you created systems, for Christ's sakes, and leveraged it through other people. Now, Liam and Pat, they don't have 24 hours, 7 days a week. They've got X number of people multiplied by whatever it is that they're doing, guys. They're getting hundreds to thousands of hours back where you're doing all the freaking heavy lifting. It doesn't need to be that way. So, guys, awesome podcast. Love your sharing. I love your abundance mindset. You guys didn't have to do this. You took time out of your schedule. We so much appreciate it. You're a great part of this community and this family. And so is your team. Like your team, like Liam said, Morton said, are getting involved and asking questions and stuff. So look, if you're struggling, if you haven't been able to figure things out, if it's been a broken record, Groundhog Day every day, it doesn't have to be that way. You are a hard worker. You're probably incredibly determined and resilient, which is what's needed. But backed by having the right solutions and the right people with the right expertise, that's what's going to get you to where you got to go. You got to have both sides of the fence. You just can't have putting in more and more and more and more time. Guys, that's going to come to an end. Either you're going to have a freaking heart attack, your health is going to be going to the craps, your personal life's going to be affected. So raise a hand, get help, whether it's through us. Click, there's going to be some links down below. Again, this is Andrew Houston from the No Bullshit podcast for contractors. Thanks so much, Mr. Moran, Hamilton, Pat. You guys are awesome. And we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.